Do you have to PAT test? It's a common question, and the short answer is not exactly, but that doesn't mean you can ignore it. In the last video, we showed how PAT testing, or more correctly, the in-service inspection and testing of electrical equipment, proves that equipment is safe to use. And we ended it by asking if we needed to put sticky labels on the appliances, and that answer is coming up. But now we're going to dig into where that responsibility actually comes from, the law. Because while the law doesn't say you have to carry out PAT testing, it does absolutely say that you must maintain electrical equipment. But is there a way to meet your legal duties without actually having to carry out PAT testing? We'll come back to that answer later, because before we get to that, we need to look at the legislation that actually applies to electrical equipment. But first, there's some definitions we need to get our head around. These definitions are taken from the Code of Practice for the in-service inspection and testing of electrical equipment, and throughout this course of videos, I'm going to be referring to that Code of Practice. So the first definition we're looking at is electrical equipment. In the context of PAT testing, this isn't just kettles and toasters. Electrical equipment is anything that uses electrical energy and isn't part of the fixed wiring. That equipment can be categorized so we know what we should and shouldn't test. Section 4 of the Code of Practice gives us clear guidance as to what electrical equipment is included in the scope of the Code of Practice. This list isn't exhaustive, but it does give us a strong indication as to the types of equipment we are responsible for testing and inspecting. First, mobile equipment. These are items that can be easily moved while in normal use. Desk lamps, toasters, fan heaters, kettles. These are the obvious ones that people think of when they hear PAT testing. Next, stationary equipment. These are heavier items that usually stay in one place but are not fixed to the installation. Workshop equipment like welders, bench grinders, IT racks, server bays and vending machines. They don't move often, but they can move, and because they aren't part of the fixed wiring, they fall squarely within the scope. Then we have fixed equipment. This catches people out because they assume anything fixed must form part of the installation. Not always the case. Lighting, hand dryers, boilers, alarm panels, security systems, two-part air conditioning units, electric tower rails, projectors and monitors. These are fixed in position but can still be fed from a flexible cable, a fused spur or a plug. Then there's handheld equipment. These are the most likely to become damaged because you physically hold them while using them. Hair dryers, polishers and power tools all fall into this group and are higher risk because of the way they are used. We also have built-in appliances, dishwashers, fridges, ovens, anything installed into a cupboard or unit but still supplied via a plug or flex. There is then a category specifically for IT equipment. Laptop power supplies, desktop computers, monitors and printers, some of the most commonly tested items in office environments. Then extension leads and adapters. Standard extension leads, those with built-in RCDs, multi-way adapters, trailing sockets and even electric vehicle charging leads all fall within this scope. And that leads us on to electric vehicle charging equipment. Not the specialised installation covered under a separate code, but mode 1 charging cables and other equipment that is not part of a dedicated EV installation. Next is electric heating equipment. Storage heaters, immersion heaters and similar appliances all require inspection depending on how they are supplied. And finally, electrical equipment built into office furniture. Desks with built-in power modules, meeting room tables and integrated sockets and similar systems. These are covered under BS 6396 but still fall within the expectations of inspection and maintenance. Oh, and did you know that this video is one in a series of videos I've made on the in-service of inspection and testing of electrical equipment? You can find out more by following the links in the description, or if you've got a question, you can email me directly at willittrip@efix.co.uk. So as you can hopefully see, PAT testing isn't just about walking around an office with a tester and testing a few kettles. The scope is far wider and the responsibilities cover more equipment than people realise. Some things do fall outside the scope of the Code of Practice. Medical equipment, lifts and hoists, equipment used in hazardous areas such as explosive atmospheres, and certain industrial machinery have their own maintenance regimes. Those exclusions are important, but they don't reduce the duty to maintain everything else. Okay, so it's good to know what the equipment is and whether it should be maintained or not, but where in the law does it actually say that? And do we need to carry out PAT testing to meet any legal obligation? Well, that decision normally falls under the duty holder. So who is the duty holder, and could it be you? Everyone in the workplace have responsibilities, including in some circumstances trainees. Regulation 3 of the Electricity at Works regulations recognises a responsibility that employers and many employees have for electrical systems. It shall be the duty of every employer and self-employed person to comply with the provisions of these regulations insofar as they relate to matters that are within his or her control. It shall be the duty of every employee while at work to Cooperate with his or her employer so far as is necessary to enable any duty placed on that employer by the provisions of these regulations to be complied with. And comply with the provisions of these regulations insofar as they relate to matters that are within his or her control. The provision and use of work equipment regulations, or PUWER, requires every employer to ensure that equipment is suitable for the use for which it is provided, and only used for work for which it is suitable. They also require every employer to ensure that equipment is maintained in good order and inspected as necessary to ensure that it is maintained in a safe condition. The Code of Practice considers normal business premises such as shops, offices and workplaces, and restricts the guidance given to non-specialist installations. But here's where things often get misunderstood. The law doesn't tell you how to maintain, who should do it,
champion,
and how often it should be done. It gives that responsibility to the duty holder, the person in charge, to decide the appropriate measures based on the risk. So if you're in charge, you may be a duty holder responsible for maintaining electrical equipment for your members of staff. And this is where the legislation can feel overwhelming, because there isn't just one law that deals with electrical equipment. So we've already looked at two pieces of legislation, the Electricity at Works regulations and the Provision of Use of Work Equipment regulations. But are there any more? Yes, there is. So welcome to the generation game of relevant legislation. Are you ready? Here we go. The Health and Safety at Works Act 1974. The Management of Health and Safety at Works Regulations 1999. The Workplace Health, Safety and Welfare Regulations 1992. The Housing Act for England and Wales 2004. The Housing Scotland Act 2006. The Housing Wales Act 2014. The Electrical Equipment Safety Regulations 2016. The Supply of Machinery Regulations 2008. The Supply of Goods and Services Act 1982. The Plugs and Sockets Safety Regulations 1994. Pause the video and make a note of how many you can remember. The answers are coming in 3, 2, 1. All of these regulations contribute to the same outcome. Electrical equipment must be safe, suitable for use, and maintained so it cannot cause harm. So before we have a mass of supervisors handing in their notice, because that's a lot more responsibility that they signed up for, it's not all doom and gloom. Remaining compliant under these legislations is not as daunting as you might think. And that is why this code of practice is so valuable. It gives a recognised structured method for meeting all of your duties. It explains how to inspect equipment, when testing is required, how to manage maintenance, and how to keep proper records. So what does the in-service inspection and testing procedure actually look like? The code sets out a routine process to confirm whether equipment is safe for continued use, or if repaired equipment is safe to return back to service. But before we go deeper, there is an important point. New equipment doesn't usually need electrical testing, because manufacturers have already tested that against relevant safety standards. But new equipment should still get a proper visual inspection before it goes into service. And that brings us to the 3 levels of inspection that we find throughout the code of practice. The first is the user check. This is done by the person about to use the piece of equipment. A quick look at the plug, the flex and the casing, and if the equipment is suitable for the environment it's being used in. If something's not quite right, then it shouldn't be used and needs to be reported. If everything's fine, there's no need to report anything and you can crack on. The next level is the formal visual inspection. This is carried out by a competent person and goes deeper. It includes all of the user checks and may also involve opening the plug or fuse connection unit to check the wiring, the fuse and the cable grip. If it fails here, it's taken out of service and the duty holder informed. This stage must be recorded. Then we have the combined inspection and test. This is where the formal visual inspection is followed by the electrical test needed to confirm that the protective measures built into the equipment are still performing correctly. It also includes functional checks to confirm that the equipment operates as intended. Once complete, the results are recorded and then we reach the final steps in the process, labelling. And this is where we can finally answer that question from the previous video. Do we need to fit labels? No, you don't. As long as a record of the test is made, which is held by the duty holder, then you do not need labels on plugs, appliances or casings. Which is why using the Megger PAT250 is brilliant, as the results are updated straight away and logged, ready to hand over to the duty holder. However, many organisations like to have labels as a quick visual tell to show that the appliance has been tested, and that person needs to have the right skills. So who exactly is competent to carry out PAT testing? Well, you can find that out in the next video, which should be on screen right now.